How's it going?
It's going good.
So, what are we doing here?
We're in La Jolla, and we're going to talk to our local congressman about getting more money from the federal government to help homelessness here in San Diego. Here's Tony getting run over. It's a good thing you're a skateboarder because you have to go over obstacles and do all kinds of... Scott Peters, House of Representatives. Yeah, there we go.
Tony, how are you?
Hey, Brian.
Good to see you.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, welcome.
This is a nice room.
It is.
For filming.
Yeah.
The colors are in. Well, we came here to find out what exactly does the federal government do for homelessness in San Diego.
Sure. With the federal government's role, it's a lot about, as you would probably imagine, funding. It's making sure that the local programs are adequately funded to address the need. And one of the things that Congressman Peters found out and saw shortly after he took office back in 2013 was that San Diego, despite having at the time top 5 homeless population, I think we ranked about 5th at the time, we ranked near 20 in federal funding for continuum of care funding programs. And so Congressman Peters took on the role of trying to balance that out and making sure that San Diego, along with a number of other cities that found themselves in a similar situation, seeing that they received their fair share.
Oh, wonderful! Yeah, it needed to be done.
It does, and it's been a long process.
Yeah.
Back in 2013, when Congressman Peters originally brought the need to change this formula to, at the time, Secretary Donovan of U.S. Housing and Urban Development, or HUD. Secretary Donovan was receptive, but then Secretary Castro took that role shortly after, and it was then starting that conversation again. After working with him and working with his staff, Congressman Peters was, in July of 2016, able to get that formula open again for comment, which was really the first step in seeing some change of how we're going to address homelessness funding from the federal level.
Yeah, that's interesting. And when do you think it will probably take place, this change in funding?
We've seen some progress. It's not final word. There hasn't been a final change in the formula yet, but we definitely have seen some progress. Initial progress was making so that this funding formula, which is incredibly antiquated, it was from the 1960s or so, and one of the criteria, something that was really heavily weighted, is pre-1940s housing. So you have older cities, cities on the East Coast, cities in the Midwest, that are going to be weighted more heavily, and as a result have seen more federal funding to their continuums of care. Now, San Diego and other West Coast cities don't share the same age of housing stock, and so part of that, working with the federal government, trying to change this formula so that it more appropriately addresses current needs and current criteria for what's really leading to homelessness here in San Diego.
Yeah. I'm amazed that there's so many people involved in this issue, but it takes time.
It does. It does.
Who's holding it back? Who opposes this? Or it seems like a done deal. I mean, it's an old, antiquated.
You would think. So if you give more money to one city, that's going to take away money from somewhere else.
So then they fight it. So I hear Chicago and New York are opposing this.
They have, and in the comment period that was open from July through September of 2016, San Diego had a great deal of responses in favor of changes to the formula. But of course, there were cities, Chicago, New York included, that receive a lot of funding for their homeless population. And they want to be able to protect that.
I hear currently we're getting about 16 million. How much more of an increase are we looking at?
There's been a couple proposals from 1 to 2 million to 3, or a little over 3 million for San Diego. Should HUD adopt one of those 4 formulas? Now, local advocates here in San Diego have also proposed a 5th formula, what they call Formula E, that would bring in additional funding, a little bit more, over 3 million.
I've heard that we need hundreds of millions of dollars to solve this problem. What do you think about that?
Well,
think it'll solve it?
This isn't The numbers and the changes in the formula are incremental and will ideally bring San Diego more money, but it's only a piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
And what the federal government needs to do is continue to work the state government, the county, and the city level to make sure that combined we're addressing the need.
Yeah. What kind of criteria were used in the old formula?
So a lot of it is, a lot of weight was put on that pre-1940s housing stock. What these new formulas and the proposed formulas from HUD offer is more weight towards affordability, rental units and available rental units, extremely low income individuals.
What effects do you think the new administration is going to have on all of this?
The role that Congressman Peters sees with the new administration is ideally the same that we've seen with the Obama administration in the past. HUD secretaries is to engage them, inform them. The department has staff that are career folks who understand the need for this and understand the formula, its history, and what can be done to offer cities like San Diego and regions our fair share.
Dolores Diaz of the Regional Task Force, came over, reached over the table after we had our interview and said, "I'm so sorry that the system failed you." And I think it was heartfelt. She works very hard at trying to change things along with other people who are continuing to work hard. But it just takes time. It takes so time, and in the meantime, I'm still in the same spot.
Yes.
And I'll probably be in this spot for a while. I'm looking for housing. It's difficult. There's no sympathy for my position.
Yeah, well,
at all. You did a job.
Well, I'm glad you've been able to have these conversations with folks like Dolores and who, were at the regional task force, and now that it's part of the continuum, is the continuum of care here in San Diego, to look at all the resources under that umbrella. And from Congressman Peters, that's what we need to fund. We need to make sure that the folks on the ground, the folks that are listening to you, listening to your story, listening to hear what you need, what on a day-to-day basis, what would you like to see improve, that those people are adequately funded. And if they're not, then they can't do their job. If San Diego is underfunded from the continuum of care and federal level, then there's programs that you and others could be offered that aren't available. The more that you can tell your story and let people know what the needs are and what the priorities are, the more helpful that will be when that money comes.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, thanks.
Of course. No, thank you.
Okay.
All
right, Scott. Brian. Oh, boy. Brian. I'm glad they're thinking about or being made aware of that the formulas are old, that they use antiquated formulas to fund San Diego. But once again, we're talking about it stage and nothing really is changing, but I guess that's the beginning of change, so that's progress in the right direction. With the new formulas, the proposed formulas, we'll probably only get a couple $1 million in San Diego, and while that annually, while that's great, it's not really going to do enough. We need a local source of funding.